The movie begins with a woman running, trying to escape from a guy after a gunshot. She ran up the stairs and closed the door behind, and a man started knocking on the door. She poured bleach in a bucket and threw it on the man the moment he managed to open the door. Beth is sitting in a diner, looking at a picture of herself being chosen as the homecoming queen. Her co-worker, Allie, came and commented about a brochure of a beach she was holding. She told her it could be a gift from Pete, Beth's husband, since it was their anniversary. Beth looked upset and she told her about her marriage not being in a good place. Allie asks if Beth thinks Pete is cheating, and Beth gets angry at this. Allie shifted the talk to her appointment with her doctor later that day. Then she suggests Beth does something special today and leaves. Beth went out to take orders from customers. Two guys were sitting and she went asking what she could get them. One of them tried to touch her inappropriately, while the other pulled and put her on his lap. She tried to get away, but he doesn't seem to let go. Then a police officer showed up and he let her go. The officer threatened them and they both left. Beth asked the officer not to tell Pete because he'd make her quit. He agreed and told her to give Pete a chance and start fresh. Pete is sitting in his car talking to his colleague through a radio. His colleague asked if he was doing something special for his anniversary. Then he started giving him advice on how to treat Beth well. As they were discussing this, Pete saw the two guys from the diner pass. Beth got in her car carrying a paper bag. She started her car, but it won't start. As she was trying to make it start, a truck came and stopped behind her. She tried to see who it was through her rearview mirror nervously, but it left. She went home and went to the kitchen to get started with cooking. She turned the water on, but there was no water. She went out and started smoking. When she was done, she went to an empty water well and threw the cigarette and got back home. Pete came back carrying a present. Beth was finishing up in the kitchen, putting the cooked meal on a plate to serve. She called him from behind as he was going upstairs, and he told her that she looks great. He put his gun in a box and kissed her, then went upstairs to change. The two guys from the diner are sitting in their car talking about stars and horoscopes when a police car approaches from behind. The officer that saved Beth earlier came with a flashlight and saw it was them. He asked what they were doing by the side of the road, which happens to be near a house of a friend of his. He asked if they have marijuana and told them to step out of the car, pulling his gun out. They got out of the car and he found a gun while searching one of them. The guy said he has a license for it, but the officer threw the gun and pointed his gun at him when he tried to move. He found another gun in the other guy's waistband as well and threw it away. Then he told them he'd let them go with a warning and hit them both with his baton. They got into their car and one of them asked how they are going to do something they planned without a gun, and the other one told him they'll figure it out and they drive away. Then they turned their car around and drove towards the officer and hit him. In their home, Pete told her the food smells great and sat at the table after turning the scanner on. Beth asked if they could eat without the scanner today. He got up and turned it off, saying he is off duty tonight. She served the food and they started eating. Beth put on music and asked him to dance with her. While they were dancing, Pete apologized and told her that he is trying to be better. Beth picked up a bottle of champagne and went upstairs looking at Pete to follow her. Pete went after her and they made love. Pete wakes up the next morning to an empty bed. He called for Beth, but there was no answer. He went to the kitchen and saw an egg on the stove. Then he went out and saw Beth standing. He started walking towards her, but she disappeared. He woke from his dream and saw Beth sleeping next to her. He got up and pulled a picture from his wallet and started looking at it. Beth was also awake and asked him if he couldn't sleep. Pete went to the window and started looking outside. He saw a truck coming and asked Beth if she was expecting anyone. She told him that it could be someone who was lost, but Pete wanted to check. He went out and saw the two guys from the diner in their car. He went to talk to them and ran back to the house to tell Beth to lock the door. She asked what was wrong and he told her that there was an accident and he thinks that it is Walt. One of the guys stayed behind because there was no space in the car for two people. Beth locked the door and called 911 to report the accident that they said happened. In the car, the guy apologized for ruining his evening with his lady. They reached the place and saw Walt lying on the ground. Pete ran to him and confirmed that he was breathing. The guy pulled out his gun, but he changed his mind and put it back before Pete saw. He tried to call people through the radio, but it wasn't working, so he asked the guy to help him take him back to the house. Back in the house, the guy is apologizing to Beth for what happened in the diner. He asked for a drink and she gave him soda. Mosquitoes started biting him, and Beth felt sorry and let him in. He started walking around the house looking around. Pete and Doug came to the house with Walt lying on the truck. Pete told Beth to open the guest room, and they put him there. Pete asked to have privacy, and they left. He told Beth he thinks the guys hit Walt. Beth asked why they would do that, and he told her he probably pulled them over and found something in their possession. He told her to distract them while he got his gun. The two guys, Doug and JB, are talking upstairs. JB asked Doug why he didn't take Pete out while they were there. Doug told JB to shut up. He also told him he lost the gun while moving the body. Pete and Beth came, and Doug asked if Walt was going to make it or not. Pete told him help will arrive soon. Beth told them that they can leave, but they insisted on staying, saying they feel responsible because they found him. Beth offered leftovers, and JB followed her. Doug asked to wash before he ate. Doug went to the bathroom and sneaked into the room where Walt was in. Walt was awake and pulled his gun from the side. Doug picked a pillow to suffocate him, but he got called upstairs and left. Beth served the leftovers. Pete asked what they were doing around, and Doug got defensive, saying he was asking a lot of questions. Beth got in the middle and clarified that Pete is in law enforcement. Doug and JB started laughing, and Pete asked what was making them laugh, and Doug straight up told him that they were there to kill them and picked up a knife. Doug and Pete start to fight. JB came from behind and attacked Pete. Then, Doug got Pete in a headlock and Doug passed out. Beth ran up the stairs and Doug followed her. She held out the knife in her hands and he sat on the bed smiling. She went to the bed and dropped the knife, and they started kissing. Walt and JB are staring at each other. JB saw the gun in Walt's hand and encouraged him to shoot him, but Walt was too weak. He blubbered about a lot of things, and he suffocated him with a pillow. Doug and Beth are cuddling, and he was telling her it was hard being away from her. He told her that Pete's life insurance is close to millions, and she doesn't have anything to worry about. He showed her his back, and she saw his and her name tattooed. She scolded him, saying it'd look suspicious if he got caught, and they saw that he had the name of the widow of the victim on his back. Then, they started to argue about what Doug did so far, about the restaurant and hitting Walt with a car involving JB. He told her he'll fix it, and she got up and got dressed, getting angry by his answer. She told him they will put Walt's body in the well, cause the police wouldn't have any reason to look there. Then he and JB will leave, and she will be the survivor of the home invasion. She told him he had to make it look convincing. Doug started to hit her to make it look like she was also attacked. Allie knocked on the door of the house. JB opened the door and told her he is Pete's cousin. He asked why she came late, and she told him that she has good news, that she has to tell Beth. JB asked to tell him, but Allie got creeped out and told him she'll come back the next morning. He insisted that she wait for her in the dining room. She went there and put the envelope, and she hurried to the door, saying she put it on the table. JB stopped her from going out, and he took her back to the dining room. He saw there was blood and that Pete's body wasn't there, and cussed loudly and turned back to Allie. She was on her way to the door, and he pulled his gun out. Beth came from the stairs and called after her. Allie asked if she was okay, and Beth asked what she was doing. She told her she came to drop the envelope, and Beth opened it and saw it was a sonogram. She wanted to show her the gender of her baby. Beth saw that it's a boy. Beth introduced JB as Pete's old buddy and a hero. JB started talking about his achievements, then he mentioned that they should go out sometimes, and Beth dismissed it, and she said they should let Allie go now. Allie left after asking Beth if she was really okay. Doug came down the stairs and JB told him about Pete missing. JB started freaking out, saying that they should stop. They started arguing and they saw a light outside, confirming Pete is outside. Beth came and started scolding JB, hitting him, saying Allie is about to have a baby. JB holds her by her wrist and she says he is hurting her. Doug came and stopped them, saying they don't have time for this because Pete was outside. Beth asked how that happened, and JB pulled a gun out and pointed at her. A loud voice filled the house, and they figured it was the panic button. Beth tried to turn it off, but she couldn't. Doug told her to concentrate and try, cause the cops would be called if it isn't turned off in 30 seconds. She finally turned it off, and they gasped with relief. She ran to the kitchen and saw that the box that he put his gun in was empty, and she told Doug that he has got his gun. They heard him through the scanner and figured that he was in his car. They went out but couldn't find him in his car. Doug went out and tried to bring Pete down by scaring him using Beth. Pete shot JB on the ear, but they still couldn't locate him. Doug went back to the house to get a gun and asked Beth if Pete had another gun. She showed him a closet where Pete keeps his stuff in, and he broke the door. She found the present Pete got her along with the letters that she wrote for him while he was on tour. Then she found a half-burned picture of her and Doug. She told Doug Pete knew everything all along and showed him the picture. Beth told him they should leave and went upstairs to pack, then changed her mind and told Doug she will finish him. Pete went to the garage and treated himself with a first aid kit. JB found him as he was bandaging himself and shot at him. Pete managed to escape and pushed JB to the ground, and they started fighting. Beth and Doug couldn't figure out who was shot. Beth went to the garage and called for Pete. He came and saw her bruised face, and he asked what happened. She told him one of them tried to rape her, and she stabbed him and took him to the house to show him. Once they were home, Pete asked her what happened to the help they called. Beth asked him to put his gun down because it was scaring her. Pete put everything together and looked at Beth. Doug came from the side and he shot him. He asked Beth who the guy was and she ran upstairs. He followed her, shouting her name. He opened the door and she threw a bucket full of bleach on his face. He dropped his gun and she picked it. She ran downstairs and took a key from Doug's pocket and got in a car. She drove towards Pete, but she hit a garbage can and stopped. She got out of the car and asked how long he had known, pointing a gun at him. She started shouting at him, saying she just wanted to be free, and Pete told her he can fix this. She started walking backwards and fell into the well, but Pete caught her. But she stabbed his hands and he let her go. She fell to the well and died. Pete sat, overwhelmed by the realization that his entire life had been built on a lie, as the truth continued to haunt him relentlessly. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.